The quiet man at the hill. There was something strange about the house on the hill. People in the neighborhood often whispered about it during evening walks, wondering how someone so famous could live there in such silence. The tall gates, the wide yard, and the calm blue pool glimmering under the sunset made it look peaceful, yet mysterious. No security guards, no loud music, no visitors. Only one man lived there quietly, away from the noise of Hollywood, Keanu Reeves. But peace, even for the kindest souls, doesn't last forever. One summer night, while the moon hung heavy above the palm trees, Keanu was sitting by the pool reading an old notebook. It wasn't a script or a plan for his next film. It was a small collection of personal thoughts, quiet reflections about life, loss, and gratitude. He liked reading it before sleeping. It reminded him of what truly mattered. That night, as he flipped a page, he heard something faint. A splash, then a laugh, then another. His eyes lifted. At first, he thought he imagined it. But when he stood and walked toward the glass doors, he saw shadows moving near the pool. 3 young people, maybe in their early 20s, were in the water, whispering and giggling. They didn't see him yet. They were clearly sneaking in, as if his home was some sort of adventure park. For a moment, Keanu didn't move. He simply watched. He could have shouted, called someone, or scared them away, but he didn't. He just stood there, quiet, observing. The intruders seemed careless, leaving wet footprints near the chairs, throwing towels around, laughing like they owned the place. Keanu could sense something deeper. Not just mischief, but a kind of emptiness behind their laughter. It reminded him of how lost people can be when they don't understand boundaries or respect. He finally stepped outside, barefoot, his voice calm but firm. "You know this isn't a public pool, right?" The laughter stopped. The 3 froze like statues. One of them, a tall guy with nervous eyes, tried to joke. "Oh man, it's Keanu Reeves. We just wanted to take a dip. We didn't think you'd be here." Keanu said nothing at first. His silence made them uncomfortable. He wasn't angry, but there was something about his stillness that made them realize what they had done. "You could have asked," he said quietly. It's strange how people think respect is optional when no one's watching. His words didn't carry rage, but weight, the kind of weight that only truth carries. One of the girls looked down, embarrassed. "We didn't mean anything bad, we just thought it would be cool." Keanu nodded slowly. "Cool is easy. Kindness is harder. Both choices say something about who you are." They stood there, unsure what to do next. He could have called the police, taken pictures, or shouted. Instead, he did something they didn't expect. He told them to dry off, come inside, and have tea. Their faces twisted in confusion. "Wait, what? You're not mad?" He smiled faintly. "Anger only teaches people to hide. Understanding sometimes makes them see." They hesitated, but curiosity won. They followed him inside the warm, quiet house. It smelled like old books and coffee. Pictures lined the walls, not of luxury, but of memories. Keanu poured them tea, still wearing his calm expression. The young people sat awkwardly, unsure how to behave. He asked them where they were from, what they did, and why they thought sneaking into a stranger's pool was a good idea. At first, they gave silly answers, but gradually their words softened. One of them admitted they were struggling. No jobs, no direction, feeling invisible in a city where fame and money seemed like the only goals. Keanu listened. Really listened. That was his way, quiet presence that disarmed arrogance. He told them he understood, that he had known loneliness too, that he had lost people, that the world often confuses happiness with escape. His voice was low, slow, and sincere. "You can swim anywhere, but finding peace, that's harder. Peace comes when you stop running from what hurts and start facing it." The room went silent. They didn't know what to say. One of them wiped a tear quickly, pretending it was nothing. As they finished their tea, Keanu stood up and said gently, "You'll clean the pool area tomorrow morning. Then we'll talk again. Deal?" They nodded, ashamed but also relieved. As they left that night, one of them whispered, "He didn't even lock the gate. He trusted us." Keanu stayed by the window long after they left, watching the moon reflect on the still water. He wasn't sure if he did the right thing. Maybe kindness would teach them something. Maybe not. But he believed that people learn more from being understood than being punished. The next morning, the young people came back, quiet and serious. They cleaned the pool as promised. Keanu watched from a distance, letting them work in silence. When they finished, he came outside with breakfast. They sat together again. This time, they asked him questions about movies, about life, about how he stayed calm even when people disrespected him. Keanu smiled. You can't control what people do, but you can control what you become because of it. It was simple, but it sank deep. They looked at each other, realizing they had judged him before ever knowing him. As the day ended, they thanked him and promised to never cross someone's boundaries again. But something in their eyes told him this story wasn't over, because one of them, the tall boy, kept looking around as if thinking about something else. That night, when Keanu went to bed, he had a strange feeling. He didn't know that one of the intruders would return, not to swim, but for something that would change everything. The calm before the storm had begun. The return to the silent pool, the next few days passed quietly. Keanu went back to his usual rhythm, long morning walks, coffee at dawn, reading under the tree near the pool, and an evening swim when the world fell silent. He didn't tell anyone about the intruders. He didn't want it to become a story or a rumor. He believed it was over. But sometimes, peace hides a shadow behind it. On the fourth night, a soft sound woke him again. It was faint, almost delicate, a knock not on the main gate but on the glass door near the living room. He walked carefully, barefoot as always, and looked out. The moonlight spilled across the yard, and near the pool stood the same tall boy who had broken in days earlier. He wasn't laughing now. His face was pale, eyes hollow, holding something in his hands, a small black backpack. Keanu opened the door slowly. "You again?" he said quietly. Not with anger, but with a kind of weary calm. The boy nodded nervously. I didn't know where else to go." Keanu studied him for a moment. "Come inside." The boy stepped in, trembling slightly. He looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept or eaten in days. Keanu motioned toward the couch. "Sit down." "What happened?" The boy took a deep breath and said, "My name's Ethan." He had come from a small town far away, chasing the dream of becoming a musician. His parents didn't support him, and when things got hard in the city, he started doing things he wasn't proud of, sneaking, lying, stealing little things to get by. The pool that night was just another escape. But what made him come back wasn't guilt, it was fear. Ethan opened the backpack slowly and placed something on the table. A camera. "This isn't mine," he whispered. "One of my friends from that night. He took it. He said we could sell it online. I told him no, but he didn't listen. When I found out it was from your property, I panicked. I tried to return it, but when I called him, he laughed. He said no one would ever find out." Keanu stayed silent, listening carefully. Ethan continued. "Yesterday, I saw him again. He was bragging that he still had photos, that he'd post them online to get attention. I knew it would go bad. People don't forgive when fame gets mocked, so I came here to fix it before it's too late." Keanu leaned back, his face unreadable. "You did the right thing coming back. But there's something else in your eyes. What are you not telling me?" Ethan hesitated. His fingers clenched the edge of his backpack. "They're angry at me. They think I betrayed them. They followed me. I think they know I'm here." The room went quiet. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. Keanu stood up and locked the door gently, not out of fear, but protection. "You'll stay here tonight," he said. "You look like you haven't eaten." He went to the kitchen, cooked something simple, pasta and soup. Ethan ate slowly, almost like he didn't believe someone was being kind to him. After dinner, Keanu asked softly, "Why didn't you go to the police?" Ethan stared at his bowl. "Because people like me don't get listened to." "And because I was part of it too." Keanu nodded. "Owning your mistakes doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." They talked until late night. Keanu shared a few memories, how people had misunderstood him, how fame often brought isolation instead of peace, how kindness was sometimes treated like weakness. Ethan listened silently, his eyes heavy but hopeful. When he finally fell asleep on the couch, Keanu looked at the backpack again. The camera wasn't just any camera. It was professional, expensive, clearly from a production team. But when he turned it on, there was no footage. Instead, there was a folder hidden deep inside. When he opened it, his face tightened slightly. Inside were pictures, not of the pool or the house, but of him. Photos taken from a distance over several days. Someone had been watching him. He leaned back slowly, realizing this wasn't just about trespassing or theft anymore. This was surveillance. The next morning, Ethan woke up and saw Keanu standing outside near the pool, the sunlight falling over his face. "You found them, didn't you?" Ethan asked quietly. Keanu nodded. "Who took these?" Ethan swallowed hard. "There's a man they met online. He said he could make them famous if they brought him something real, something that would get attention. They didn't even know his name, only that he promised money. I think he's dangerous." Keanu looked out over the hills. "You're right. This isn't about a pool anymore." He turned back to Ethan. "Do you still talk to them?" "Not since last night. But they texted me. They said if I didn't stop interfering, I'd regret it." Keanu's calm expression didn't change, but his voice grew slightly colder, not with anger, but with focus. "Then we'll make sure no one else gets hurt, and we'll do it the right way." He walked to his desk and picked up his phone. "There's a friend I can call. He helps with situations like this. No police yet, just someone who understands how to make people think twice." Ethan looked confused. "You're not scared?" Keanu smiled faintly. "Fear doesn't help. Awareness does." Later that day, a quiet visitor came. An old friend from the film industry, someone who had once worked in security coordination. They spoke privately for a while. Ethan sat in the living room hearing only fragments. "Monitor the area. No confrontation yet. They're young. Impulsive." That night, Keanu sat by the pool again, watching the still water ripple under the breeze. He thought about the strange chain of events. A simple act of kindness turning into a web of danger. He looked at Ethan, who sat nearby, wrapped in a blanket. "You can't change your past," Keanu said softly, "but you can make sure it doesn't repeat. Tomorrow you'll face them, with truth, not fear." Ethan looked uncertain. "What if they don't listen?" Keanu's eyes were calm as ever. "Then I will." What neither of them knew was that those friends were already planning something far more reckless. Something that would test not only their courage, but the quiet man's patience and grace. Because that night across town, 3 phones lit up with a message that read, "Tomorrow night, we go back. And this time, we won't just swim." The night of reckoning, the air that night was thick with tension. The sky had that strange stillness before a storm, where every sound seemed sharper, every movement heavier. Keanu sat in his living room, lights dimmed, reading again from his old notebook. Ethan sat quietly nearby, pretending to focus on a cup of tea but glancing toward the windows every few minutes. He was nervous. Every little sound made him jump. Keanu noticed, but he didn't say anything. Fear, he believed, had to be faced, not dismissed. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "They'll come, won't they?" Keanu looked up from his notebook. "Yes, they will. And when they do, we'll decide what kind of people we are." Ethan frowned. "You're not calling the police?" "Not yet," Keanu said calmly. "The world doesn't always need more punishment. Sometimes it needs a mirror." Outside, the wind picked up. The tall palm trees swayed. The pool shimmered faintly under the moonlight. Everything looked beautiful, peaceful, and dangerous all at once. Around midnight, the first sound came, a faint metallic click, the sound of the side gate being lifted. Then footsteps. 3 shadows appeared near the pool, moving quickly and whispering in low voices. Keanu stood up slowly. Ethan's heart pounded. The same 3 people from that first night, the tall boy's friends, had returned. They carried small cameras and a phone on a tripod. One of them whispered, "This will blow up online, man. We'll say we caught him yelling, acting crazy. Everyone will watch it." Keanu opened the glass door and stepped out silently. The motion sensor lights turned on, flooding the yard in soft white glow. The intruders froze. They stared at him, barefoot, calm, unarmed, standing in silence. His face wasn't angry. It was still. Too still. "You came back," he said quietly. One of them, A boy in a red hoodie smirked nervously. "Look, man, no hard feelings. We're just making a video. We didn't mean anything." Keanu took a slow step forward. "You think invading someone's life is a joke?" The smirk faded. The other two shifted uncomfortably. "We're not hurting anyone," the girl muttered. "We just needed views." Keanu's voice dropped lower, each word calm but cutting. "Views? So now you steal moments from people's lives for attention. That's what it's become?" Ethan stepped out behind him. "Stop lying. You said you'd post fake stuff about him. That's why I left," they glared at him. "You told him? You're such a coward." Keanu lifted a hand gently. "No more shouting. Just listen." The lights reflected on the pool, the water rippling like glass. Keanu's tone was soft, but it carried through the night like thunder. "Every one of you wants to be seen. You think attention will fix the emptiness inside. But attention isn't love. It's noise. And the louder you chase it, the further you run from yourself." His words hit like quiet waves. The three intruders stood there, caught between shame and pride. One of them tried to laugh. "You talk like some philosopher. Man, you don't know what it's like to be broke, ignored, invisible." Keanu's eyes softened. "You think I don't know invisibility? I've been in rooms full of people who pretend to see you but never truly do. I know what loneliness feels like, even when everyone knows your name." No one spoke, only the wind. He took another step closer, voice steady. "You think breaking into a home makes you powerful? It doesn't. It only proves how lost you are. Because power isn't about control. It's about restraint." For a moment, they couldn't look at him. His stillness felt heavier than anger could ever be. Then, suddenly, the boy in the red hoodie lifted his phone and pointed it at Keanu. "Say that again, man. Go ahead. Let's see if you still sound holy when the whole internet watches." Ethan moved forward, trying to grab the phone, but Keanu stopped him. "No," he said calmly. "Let him record," the boy smirked. "Yeah, go ahead. Tell us how to live." Keanu looked directly into the lens. His voice didn't shake. "You can post this, twist it, make me the villain if that helps you sleep. But when the noise fades, when the likes disappear, you'll still hear the truth in silence. And that silence will ask you who you really are." For a long moment, no one moved. And then, without warning, a blinding flash. The boy's phone camera light burst on as he stumbled backward, slipping on the wet tiles near the pool. His phone flew out of his hand and fell into the water with a splash. He froze, shocked. Ethan rushed forward instinctively, grabbing his arm to keep him from falling in. The girl gasped. "Oh my God, the phone!" Keanu knelt by the pool, watching the ripples fade. His tone was calm but sharp. "Maybe that's the lesson you needed, to stop recording and start reflecting." The boy looked shaken but not angry anymore. Something had cracked inside him, not his pride, but the illusion he had been living in. For the first time, he looked at Keanu without arrogance. "We were wrong. We just wanted to feel something real. I thought if people saw us with you, they'd finally care." Keanu nodded gently. "People will care when you do something worth caring about. Start there." The three of them stood there, uncertain, guilty, and silent. Ethan looked relieved but also wary. "It's over, right?" he asked. Keanu didn't answer. He looked at the water, his reflection broken by ripples. Something in his eyes said it wasn't over yet, because deep down, he knew the man who had hired these kids wasn't done. And if the photos from that camera were part of a bigger plan, more was coming. He stood up slowly. "Leave the same way you came. Don't return here again. I won't repeat this kindness." They nodded, backing away, too ashamed to speak. Ethan watched as they disappeared into the night, shadows swallowed by the city lights. When the gates closed again, Keanu walked to the poolside chair and sat down quietly. Ethan joined him, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you just scare them off the first time?" Keanu smiled faintly. "Fear changes behavior. Understanding changes people." He leaned back, staring at the stars reflected in the pool. "But sometimes understanding isn't enough. Sometimes you have to face the one who controls the chaos." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Keanu didn't answer. He pointed toward the far fence, where a small red light blinked once, then disappeared. It wasn't from the kids. It was a hidden camera. Someone else was watching. The man behind the lens, the morning after the second intrusion, the sun rose bright and cold. Keanu sat by the pool, his eyes fixed on the faint red dot he had seen the night before. It was gone now, but he knew what he'd seen. Years in Hollywood had taught him that cameras could hide anywhere. And sometimes, the most dangerous ones were not held by fans, but by manipulators. Ethan came out quietly, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked softly. Keanu shook his head. "Someone's still watching." Ethan froze. "You mean them?" "Not the kids," Keanu replied. "Someone else. Someone who sent them here." He stood and walked toward the edge of the yard, his steps measured. He examined the corner near the fence where he'd seen the blinking light. It didn't take long to find it. A small, black, wireless camera tucked beneath the vines, still warm from running all night. Keanu turned it off and held it up to the light. Whoever placed this knew what they were doing. "It's connected remotely," Ethan's eyes widened. "So someone's watching us right now?" "Not anymore," Keanu said calmly, slipping the camera into a small box. "But they'll realize it soon." He called his friend Mark, the same one who had helped him earlier, a quiet professional who handled private security for film productions. Within an hour, Mark arrived, dressed simply, moving with silent precision. They set up at Keanu's dining table, examining the camera's data. After a few minutes, Mark frowned. "It's not random. This feed's been uploading to a private server, encrypted. Whoever did this isn't just after gossip. They're after leverage." Keanu stayed calm. "Find them, but don't confront them yet." Mark nodded. "Give me a few hours." Ethan sat nearby, guilt washing over his face. "This is my fault. If we hadn't come that first night," Keanu interrupted softly, "regret wastes energy that could be used for change. Focus on what you'll do now, not what you did then." It was his way of healing, not through blame, but through responsibility. Hours later, Mark returned with an address. I traced the source. "It's a small media startup 2 miles from here. The name is Starview Digital. They've been trying to launch a gossip site about celebrities caught off camera. Looks like your pool was their next headline." Ethan's hands clenched. "So they used us," Keanu nodded. "Yes. And now they'll learn what truth really means." That evening, Keanu drove there himself. Ethan insisted on going along. The small office was hidden behind a row of shops, barely noticeable, a converted warehouse with tinted windows. Inside, a man in his 40s sat at a desk surrounded by computer screens. Sipping coffee, his eyes glued to a monitor. He looked up, startled when the door opened. "Mr. Reeves?" he said with forced calm. "I didn't expect—" "You didn't expect me to find you?" Keanu said quietly. The man tried to smile. "Look, this is just business. People love real stories. You're a public figure. No harm, no foul." Keanu stepped closer, his voice controlled but cold. "Watching someone without consent isn't journalism. It's violation. And using lost kids for it, that's worse?" The man shrugged, pretending confidence. "Come on, it's harmless. You looked good in the footage anyway. We weren't planning to sell anything offensive." Keanu's expression didn't change, but his silence pressed on the man like a weight. Ethan stepped forward, anger trembling in his voice. "You promised them fame. You made us believe we were doing something exciting. You ruined everything." The man looked uncomfortable. "Kid, I didn't force anyone. They came to me," Keanu cut in. "You knew they were desperate. You used their weakness to feed your greed. And now, you'll stop?" The man smirked. "And if I don't?" Keanu leaned in just slightly, his voice steady as stone. "Then I'll make sure every person who values truth knows exactly what you are. No anger, no noise, just facts. Silence can destroy louder than shouting." The man's smirk faded. Something in Keanu's eyes unnerved him, not threat, but conviction. It was the kind of calm that made people question themselves. "Fine," he muttered. "I'll delete the files." "No," Keanu said softly. "You'll not just delete them. You'll apologize to those kids, and you'll tell them why using others for views will never make them happy." The man scoffed. "You really think that'll fix anything?" Keanu replied, "It will fix you if you let it." For a long moment, silence filled the room. The man finally exhaled, shoulders dropping. "You're not like the rest of them." Most would sue or call the press. Keanu smiled faintly. Laws fix actions. Lessons fix hearts. Mark later confirmed that the footage was deleted, the server wiped, and the camera traces erased. But something deeper had shifted that night, not just in Ethan or the man behind the lens, but in Keanu himself. He returned home in silence. The pool shimmered under the soft glow of the garden lights, calm and forgiving, as if nothing had ever happened. Ethan sat by the edge, his reflection trembling on the water. "Why didn't you expose him?" he asked quietly. Keanu sat beside him. "Because revenge makes us like the people we stand against. Redemption separates us." Ethan looked down. "And if he doesn't change?" Keanu gazed at the stars. "Then that's his lesson to face. Everyone gets one moment when they can choose to become better. What they do with it defines them." The night grew quiet again, peaceful, but under the surface, a subtle tension remained. The next morning, Keanu found a letter slipped under his door. It had no name, only a few words written in shaky handwriting. "It's not over." He wasn't working alone. He looked up slowly toward the hills, feeling the stillness shift again. Something darker was watching from a distance, and this time, it wouldn't be just about privacy. It would be about safety. The shadow in the light, the letter stayed on the table for hours. Its single sentence repeated itself in Keanu's mind like a quiet echo. It's not over. He wasn't working alone. He had learned long ago that fame attracts not only admiration but also shadows, people drawn to light for the wrong reasons. This time, though, it wasn't about gossip or money. It felt deeper, more deliberate. Someone was orchestrating something, and the children and the media man were only pawns in a bigger game. By evening, the sky turned gray. A thin drizzle began to fall, painting silver lines across the pool. Ethan sat by the window, staring at the wet pavement below. He looked uneasy, guilt carved into every movement. "You think he's coming back?" Ethan asked. Keanu looked up from his notebook. "Not him. Someone else." Mark arrived again, his calm presence steadying the room. He carried a small tablet and some files. "I did some digging," he said, setting them down. "That man from Starview didn't start this. There's a financial trail behind his company. Someone's funding his operations anonymously. Big money hidden through shell accounts. But there's one name that keeps appearing on digital contracts." He turned the screen toward Keanu. The name read Vince Harper. Keanu's eyes narrowed slightly. He remembered the name. Years ago, Vince had been a photographer working on a film set. Ambitious, talented, but unethical. He had been fired for manipulating images and leaking private on-set moments. He had vanished afterward, bitter and angry. "So it's him," Keanu said quietly. Mark nodded. "He's running a hidden network now, not just gossip, but digital blackmail. He targets public figures, finds emotional leverage, and sells it. Your property became one of his recent marks. He probably used the kids to test the setup." Ethan looked horrified. "So all of this started with him?" Keanu nodded. "And now we finish it, but not with anger." That night, Keanu walked outside alone. Rain had stopped, but the ground was wet and shining under the garden lights. He looked at the hills beyond the fence and whispered to himself, "Sometimes people break others because they're already broken inside." The next morning, he called Vince directly. Vince answered with false cheer. "Keanu Reeves, I was wondering when you'd reach out. You've caused quite a buzz, you know. People love a mystery." Keanu's tone was calm. "And you love chaos." Vince laughed. "It's not personal. The world wants drama. I just deliver it." "You mistake destruction for creation," Keanu said softly. "You can't build anything from people's pain." Vince's voice grew sharp. "Don't pretend you understand me. You have everything: fame, love, legacy. I had to survive on scraps you left behind. I was invisible." "So you decided to make others invisible too," Keanu replied. The silence that followed was long. Vince finally spoke again, colder. "You think your calm act scares me? I have footage. I have more than you think." Keanu's eyes darkened slightly. "Then you'll have to live with it. Because I won't fight you with hate. I'll fight you with truth." Vince hung up. That evening, Keanu met with Mark and Ethan. "He'll come," Keanu said. "He wants confrontation." He wants an audience. They decided to wait. Keanu didn't call the police not yet. He believed exposure was more powerful when truth spoke for itself. As night fell, a car pulled up quietly outside. Vince stepped out, tall and sharp-faced, wearing a black jacket. He carried a small bag and an arrogance that filled the air. "So this is where the quiet saint lives," he said, stepping through the open gate. Keanu stood by the pool, hands in his pockets. "You didn't have to come here." "Oh, I did," Vince sneered. "I wanted to see the man who thinks kindness can protect him. I wanted to see what happens when calm finally cracks." Ethan stepped out from the doorway, but Keanu motioned for him to stay back. Vince pulled out a small device, a mini camera. "This time it's my story, not yours." Keanu's voice was still low, unshaken. "You can record me if you need to. People will see exactly what you want them to, until they feel what's missing." "The truth behind your noise," Vince laughed bitterly. "You sound like a preacher." Keanu took a slow step forward, his eyes fixed on him. "I sound like someone who's already lost everything that mattered once. And learned peace isn't built by hurting others." "What did you lose, Vince?" For the first time, Vince's mask cracked. He hesitated. "My career, my family, my name." Keanu's tone softened. "And you think revenge will bring it back?" Vince looked away. His hand trembled slightly. "It's all I have left." Keanu took another step closer. "Then take something better. Forgiveness. Not from me, from yourself." Vince's jaw tightened. The camera in his hand lowered. "You think I can just erase what I did?" "No," Keanu said. "But you can stop adding to it." The moment hung heavy between them. The rain began again, a soft, cold cleansing. Vince stood there for a long time, the defiance draining from his face. He finally dropped the camera. It hit the wet tiles and cracked. "I'm done," he whispered. Mark came forward quietly, collecting the device. "We'll handle this," he said to Keanu. Keanu nodded. "Make sure he gets help, not headlines." Vince left without another word. Later, when the night settled and the world grew silent again, Keanu sat by the pool. Ethan joined him, still processing everything. "You could have destroyed him," Ethan said softly. "But you didn't." Keanu looked at the reflection of the moon in the water. "Some people already live inside their punishment. They don't need another one. They need a door out." Ethan nodded slowly. "So, is it over now?" Keanu smiled faintly. "Almost. But there's one thing left to do." He reached into his notebook and wrote something down. It wasn't a quote or a thought. It was a name. Ethan's. Beside it, he wrote one short sentence. "Second chances begin when you believe they exist." But even as he closed the notebook, far away, in a dim room filled with screens, another camera light flickered on. Someone new was watching, and this time it wasn't for money. It was for revenge. The final reflection, the following days were deceptively quiet. The rain stopped, the skies cleared, and for a brief moment it felt like peace had returned to the house on the hill. Birds landed again near the pool. The morning light shimmered across the water, and the air smelled like calm after chaos. But Keanu knew silence can hide storms, and this silence felt too deliberate. Ethan had started working again. Small things, helping around the property, reading books from Keanu's library, and slowly rebuilding his confidence. He seemed lighter. Sometimes he even smiled. Still at night, he noticed Keanu sitting alone by the pool, eyes fixed on the horizon, as if waiting for something unseen. "You don't trust the quiet, do you?" Ethan asked one evening. Keanu smiled gently. "Quiet is never the problem. It's what hides inside it." Mark had set up new security systems around the house. Hidden cameras, motion alerts, silent sensors. But even with all the technology, Keanu relied more on instinct. And one evening, that instinct spoke loudly. It was past midnight when the alert light blinked, not on the outer fence, but near the garage. Someone had crossed the line. Keanu rose immediately, silent as shadow. Ethan followed, whispering, "Is it Vince again?" Keanu shook his head. "No, he's done. This is someone else." They stepped outside, careful, barefoot on the cold tiles. The night was heavy, the air thick. The moon shone like a pale coin over the still pool. Then came the sound. A faint click, the same kind that comes from a camera lens adjusting. A voice spoke from the darkness near the trees. "So it's true. You let the man who watched you walk free." Keanu turned slowly. A tall woman stepped out, dressed in dark clothes, holding a small drone controller in one hand. Her face was tense, eyes sharp. "Who are you?" Keanu asked quietly. "Someone who used to work with Vince," she said coldly. "You made him delete everything. You think it ends there?" He wasn't the only one who lost everything. "I lost my career because of your people, too." Keanu's voice remained calm. "My people didn't end your career. Your choices did," she laughed bitterly. "You talk about choices like you know what it's like to be powerless." Ethan stepped forward. "He does. You just don't understand the kind of power he carries. It's not control, it's restraint." The woman's eyes flicked toward Ethan. "So you're the kid who betrayed us. The one who told him everything." She pulled something from her pocket, a small flash drive. "This has backups. Unedited footage, real enough to destroy reputations. Not just his, many others. I kept them safe, and now he's going to help me make them matter." Keanu didn't move. "You don't want justice," he said softly. "You want revenge, and revenge only feeds the wound that caused it." She hesitated. His calm unnerved her, just as it had unnerved the others. "You think you can talk me out of this?" Keanu took one step closer, his tone low, almost compassionate. "I think you came here because part of you still wants to be understood. People who only want to hurt don't announce themselves. They hide. You came because you want someone to stop you." Her hand trembled slightly around the controller. "Stop me? You don't even know what I've lost." "Then tell me," Keanu said gently. "And maybe you'll see it's not gone, only misplaced." For a long moment, she said nothing. The only sound was the soft wind brushing the trees. Then, slowly, she lowered the controller. "I believed in Vince," she whispered. "I thought exposing lies would make the world fair. But the deeper we went, the dirtier it got. We started crossing lines. I told myself it was for truth, but it was for revenge. When he broke, I blamed you. Because it's easier to hate someone calm than face your own chaos." Her voice cracked slightly at the end. Ethan watched her, unsure what would happen next. Keanu stepped forward again, slow and steady. "It's never too late to return to yourself. Give me that drive. We'll fix it. Not by destroying anyone, but by cleaning what's been dirtied." She looked at the flash drive for a long time. Then, with a trembling sigh, she handed it over. Keanu took it gently, almost like handling something fragile. The world doesn't need another story about destruction. It needs stories of people who stop before going too far. Tears welled in her eyes, though she tried to hide them. "You really are who they say you are?" He smiled faintly. "No, I'm just someone who's learned that peace isn't quiet. It's courage." She turned and walked away slowly, fading into the dark road beyond the gates. Ethan exhaled, finally breaking the long silence. "You didn't even threaten her. You just talked." Keanu smiled softly. "Talking is how you reach what's human in someone. Punishment can't reach that." They stood there for a moment, watching the sky begin to lighten. Dawn was rising over the hills, painting gold over the wet tiles and still pool. Ethan looked at him and said quietly, "You've turned every moment that could have been war into peace." "How do you do that?" Keanu's answer was simple. "You don't fight darkness by attacking it. You outshine it." He dropped the flash drive into the pool, watching it sink slowly to the bottom. The ripples spread outward, soft and silent. Ethan smiled. "So that's it? It's all over?" Keanu nodded. "Yes, now. It's over." They sat together until the sun fully rose, golden light reflecting on their faces. The world felt lighter, quieter. Not because the chaos was gone, but because they had faced it without becoming part of it. Later, as Keanu closed his notebook for the last time, he wrote one final line. "The world tests your calm not to break it, but to reveal it." He looked toward the pool, once a symbol of intrusion, now a mirror of peace, and smiled. And for the first time in weeks, he felt something deeper than quiet. He felt free.